now. I'm going to turn back to our speakers in just a moment for some final thoughts. But again, I want to remind you again about the surveys you're going to be receiving. If you're applying for continuing education credit, that survey is mandatory. You can view your certificates, your credit requirements, much more at our website, theknowledgegroup.org. You can also download the Knowledge Group app available for iOS and Android. And also follow us across our social media platforms. The Knowledge Group can be found on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram as well. You can even get the latest news and event information by subscribing to our Knowledge Group podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. You'll hear the latest on what speakers will be covering at upcoming events. If a question comes up for one of the speakers that we had today, any other material we've covered, I know it's been a lot, perhaps after we've walked away, you might find you have a question. You can reach out to the speakers individually. Their contact information is on your events materials. If you need help locating that, we can help you with that info at theknowledgegroup.org. So we have just a few minutes remaining. I want to turn back to our speakers. Again, we've covered so much information, and I want to see if you could maybe share a key thought, a nugget, maybe a takeaway point, something for our attendees to really absorb and summarize in what we've presented today. Daniel, since you started our presentation, we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you. So I guess, you know, if there were a nugget or two that I'd take away, I'd distill it into the law and then the COVID-19. In terms of the law, it actually, there have been some incredible changes in the law that we're seeing play out right now. And this pull and tug between Cyan and the ability to bring a case, a Securities Act case in state court, that's a real win for plaintiffs. And now we have to see how the Delaware law gets adjudicated by other courts. So that'll be something to be on the lookout for. But even more importantly is this conversation that we had about liability, scheme liability, and who can be held accountable for participating in material misstatements and omissions. And then just with regard to event-driven litigation and COVID-19, I think this is just a time to, the SEC is broadcasting what it's looking for. And, it's a time to really take stock and be as forthright as possible. And that's where I would leave it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel Barenbaum. And now let's turn to Ms. Janeen McIntosh.
I'm just going to touch on a few quick areas. One is, we see filings are remaining pretty strong. It's true through 2019, and in 2020, Q1 showed some slowdown, but, we are looking at April right now, and April, so far, we haven't finished our analysis, but April is showing some uptake in filings. So even though early indications show that if there might have been a slowdown, there is quite the possibility we're going to pick up in the next few quarters. So that it could still end up being quite a busy year in the securities class action arena. And the other thing is, we're seeing a lot of shift, a lot of different patterns with regard to settlement values, and these are heavily influenced by one or two key big settlement values. But once we take those out, we see that the averages are quite in line. But when you look at the median, which is that statistic I mentioned before, we are seeing that a lot of settlements are occurring for higher values. So there's been a shift in the settlement values with some upward pressure. So even though there might not be a big uptick in the average values, once you remove these outliers, you are seeing a lot of upward pressure in the settlement values overall. And so long-term, that could lead to higher settlement values. And then lastly, I would say, our model says that we have quite a bit of cases coming through the pipeline that could potentially also lead to higher settlement values. And so once those come through the door, we will see some upward pressure there as well. So there are a couple of things we want to keep an eye on. Of course, we want to keep our eye on development areas. We want to see what's going to happen with COVID-19 and how those are going to start to shake out in terms of filings and even on the resolution side. So those are just a couple of key points I want to take away. And, if you want any more information about any of these statistics or anything that I haven't touched on, but you think we might be the people to look for, to get in touch with, please feel free to take a look at our annual trends report or to contact me directly after the webinar. I believe my information is included at the bottom.